Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The laughter around our dining room table had that hollow ring you hear at corporate parties. Forced, brittle, ready to shatter at the first honest word. I sat there nursing my third whiskey, watching my wife Leela hold court with her usual crowd of sycophants and social climbers. The game of charades had devolved into the kind of mean-spirited roasting that passed for entertainment among her circle. "Garrett looks like he's plotting something over there," Monica chirped from across the table. Her wine-stained lips curled in that perpetual smirk she wore like expensive jewelry. She was Leela's work bestie, all sharp angles and sharper ambitions, the kind of woman who'd step on her own mother to climb another rung up the corporate ladder. Leela glanced my way with those ice-blue eyes that used to make my heart skip. Now they just made my stomach turn. "Oh, you know Garrett. He's always brooding about something, probably thinking about his precious boats down at the marina." The table erupted in polite chuckles. Evan Merrick, my wife's golden boy coworker with his perfectly styled hair and $1,000 smile, leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. Maybe he's composing another one of his angry letters to the Harbor Commission. More laughter. I took another sip of whiskey and let it burn down my throat, savoring the fire. They had no idea what was coming. "You know what, though?" Leela's voice took on that theatrical tone she used when she wanted to be the center of attention. She raised her wine glass like she was about to make a toast. "If I could turn back time, like that Cher song, I'd never marry Garrett." The room went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then the nervous laughter started. That uncomfortable sound people make when someone crosses a line, but they're not sure if it was intentional. I set down my glass and smiled. "Finally, something we agree on." Le Perido. The laughter stopped completely. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers and photographs. The kind of envelope that changes lives and ends marriages. I placed it on the table between the empty wine bottles and scattered game pieces, right where everyone could see it. "What's that?" Monica asked, her voice suddenly small. "Evidence," I said, opening the flap. "Screenshots, printouts, timestamps. Amazing what people will put in writing these days." Leela's face went pale. Evan straightened in his chair, his golden boy confidence flickering like a candle in the wind. I pulled out the first batch of photos, screenshots of text messages between my loving wife and her devoted coworker. The kind of messages that would make a sailor blush, full of promises and plans and intimate details that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or marketing strategies. "Let's see," I said, holding up the first one. "Here's a good one from last Tuesday. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. G is working late, so we have all night." Lila lunged across the table, trying to grab the papers. "Those are private." I pulled them back, grinning. "Not anymore, sweetheart. Privacy ended when you decided to conduct your affair in our bed while I was busting my back at the docks." The other guests, 3 couples who'd come for drinks and games, sat frozen like deer in headlights. This wasn't the entertainment they'd signed up for. Evan finally found his voice. "Look, Garrett, this isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I pulled out another photo, this one showing him leaving our apartment building at 2 in the morning. "Because it looks like you've been screwing my wife for the past 3 months." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I could hear the grandfather clock in the corner ticking, marking the seconds until my marriage officially ended. "That's just the warm-up act," I said, tucking the photos back into the envelope. "You'll want to stick around for the main event." 3 hours later, our guests had fled like rats from a sinking ship, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage and a bottle of bourbon that was rapidly emptying itself. Lila had locked herself in the bedroom, probably calling her lawyer or her mother or whoever it is that cheating wives call when their worlds collapse. I sat in my leather recliner, the one piece of furniture in this sterile condo that actually belonged to me, and let my mind drift back to how it all started. 4 weeks ago, to be precise. 4 weeks of playing the fool while I gathered the evidence that would destroy them both. It began with a phone call that never came. Leela was supposed to pick me up from the marina after my truck broke down. Simple favor between husband and wife, or so I thought. I waited 2 hours in the rain, calling her cell every 15 minutes, getting nothing but voicemail. Finally caught a ride home with Cap Pritchard, my old friend who'd traded his police badge for a private investigator's license and a boat slip next to mine. "Women," Cap had muttered, his gruff voice barely audible over the rain drumming on his truck roof. "Can't live with him, can't throw him overboard." When I got home, soaked and furious, Lila was in the shower. Said she'd been in back-to-back meetings all afternoon, never got my messages. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, bone dry, not a single missed call showing on the screen. That's when the doubt crept in. Small as a splinter, but just as painful. The next week brought more inconsistencies. Late nights at the office that didn't match her company's parking garage security logs. Cap had a friend who owed him a favor. Weekend team-building exercises that none of her other colleagues seemed to know about. New lingerie appearing in her dresser drawer. Tags still attached. Never worn for me. I'm not a detective, but I spent 15 years as an investigative journalist before the newspaper industry collapsed, and I ended up managing boat slips for rich weekend warriors. I know how to follow a trail, how to ask the right questions, how to spot a lie from 3 conversations away. The breakthrough came when I started watching her patterns instead of listening to her words. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd work late. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Evan Merrick's silver BMW would be parked 2 blocks from our building when I walked home from Jules' bar. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd come home with her hair slightly mussed and her lipstick gone, claiming she'd grabbed dinner with Monica. Except Monica posted her Tuesday yoga classes and Thursday book club meetings all over social media, timestamps and location tags included. I confronted Monica first, cornered her at the coffee shop where she held court every morning before work. Told her I was planning a surprise party for Leela. Needed to know her real schedule so I wouldn't interfere with their girls' nights. Monica's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She loved being in on secrets, loved feeling important. Within 10 minutes, she'd spilled everything. How Leela had been working closely with Evan on a special project. How they'd been putting in long hours together. How romantic it all seemed. They're so cute together, she'd gushed, stirring her latte with predatory enthusiasm. Like something out of a movie. All that tension, all that chemistry. I keep telling Leela she should just go for it. I thanked her for the information and walked away, my hands shaking with rage and vindication. Not only was my wife cheating, but she was doing it with her best friend's blessing and encouragement. The final piece of evidence came from Lila herself. She'd always been careless with technology, leaving her laptop open, her phone unlocked, her passwords written on sticky notes. It took me exactly 12 minutes to access her cloud storage and download 3 months' worth of text messages, emails, and photos that painted a picture of betrayal so complete it could have been a masterpiece. But the real treasure was the voice memo I found buried in her phone's recording app. 23 minutes of Lila and Evan planning not just their affair, but my destruction. They'd been building a case against me at work, spreading rumors about my drinking, my temper, my supposed threats against other employees. They wanted me gone, wanted me discredited, wanted me broken so thoroughly that no one would believe me when I finally figured out what they were doing. He's such a loser, Lila's voice had whispered through my earbuds. Stuck in that pathetic job, living in the past, thinking he's still some hotshot reporter. I can't wait to be rid of him. Soon, baby, Evan had replied. Once we get him fired for harassment, you can file for divorce and take everything. He'll be too humiliated to fight it. I'd listened to that recording 17 times, memorizing every word, every laugh, every casual cruelty. By the time I was done, my rage had crystallized into something harder and more focused than anger. It had become purpose. Now, sitting in my chair with the bourbon burning my throat, and the evidence scattered across the coffee table, I felt that purpose settle into my bones like winter cold. They wanted to destroy me. They wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to erase 15 years of marriage like it never happened. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Cap's number. "It's late," he answered on the second ring. "This better be good." "It's time," I said. "Tomorrow we start phase 2. Cap Pritchard looked like what would happen if a bear decided to become a private investigator. 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle gone slightly soft around the edges, with hands like catcher's mitts and a face that had seen too many bar fights and divorce cases. He'd been my friend since college, my best man at the wedding, and the only person I trusted to help me burn my life down in exactly the right way. We met at the marina at dawn. The fog rolling off the harbor like smoke from a funeral pyre. The fishing boats were already heading out, their diesel engines rumbling through the morning calm. I loved this time of day. The quiet, the possibility, the sense that anything could happen before the sun burned off the mist. "You sure about this?" Cap asked, setting his coffee cup on the dock railing. "Once we start, there's no going back." I pulled out my phone and played him the voice memo. All 23 minutes of it, watching his expression grow darker with each passing revelation. By the time Lila's laughter faded into silence, his jaw was clenched tight enough to crack walnuts. "Okay," he said. "They want to play dirty? Let's get dirty." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. No hacking, no breaking and entering, no illegal surveillance. Just good old-fashioned detective work, the kind Cap had perfected during his 20 years on the force. We'd use their own carelessness against them, their own arrogance, their own assumption that I was too stupid and too broken to fight back. First target, Evan's car. The silver BMW was parked in the same spot it always occupied on Thursday mornings, 2 blocks from my building in a section of street that didn't have security cameras. Cap had already scouted the area, timed the foot traffic, identified the blind spots. We had a 15-minute window while Evan was upstairs with my wife, probably planning my professional demise over pillow talk. "You sure this won't trace back to us?" I asked, pulling on the latex gloves Cap had provided. "Relax," he said, producing a small toolkit from his jacket. "I'm not going to hurt the car. Just make some modifications." He popped the hood with practiced ease and went to work on the engine. I kept watch, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. This was really happening. After a month of gathering evidence and planning revenge, I was finally taking action. "What exactly are you doing?" I whispered. "Removing the distributor cap," Cap replied, his voice muffled by the engine compartment. "Car won't start, but there's no permanent damage. Looks like a random mechanical failure." While he worked, I handled the psychological warfare. The fishing boat I managed for a local restaurant owner had provided me with a bucket of fish guts that had been sitting in the sun for 3 days. The smell was indescribable, like low tide mixed with rotting meat and broken dreams. I poured the festering mess through the BMW's air conditioning vents, making sure to get every last drop of putrid liquid into the system. By the time Evan turned on his air conditioning, his car would smell like the bottom of a bait bucket. "Artistic," Cap observed, screwing the hood back down. "Disgusting, but artistic." The final touch was a note, printed on generic paper, with no fingerprints or identifying marks. Cheaters always get what they deserve. This is just the beginning. We were gone in 12 minutes, walking casually back toward the marina, like 2 old friends taking a morning stroll. Behind us, Evan's car sat in innocent silence, waiting to deliver its aromatic surprise. "Phase 1 complete," Cap said, checking his watch. "What's next?" "Now we wait," I replied. "And while we're waiting, we make sure Leela has a very bad day at work." The corporate espionage was Monica's idea, though she didn't know it. During our coffee shop conversation, she'd mentioned how frustrated she was that Lila kept getting promoted, while Monica did all the real work. How Lila had a talent for taking credit for other people's ideas. How Monica had been developing a revolutionary marketing campaign that could transform their entire industry approach. "She's probably going to steal it," Monica had complained. "Present it as her own work, get another promotion, leave me behind again." I'd made sympathetic noises and filed the information away for later use. Now, sitting in my truck outside Lila's office building, I prepared to give Monica exactly what she'd been hoping for, a chance to expose Lila's theft before it happened. The flash drive contained copies of Monica's marketing files, which I'd obtained through the simple expedient of befriending the night janitor who cleaned their office. $20 and a bottle of whiskey had bought me 30 minutes alone with Monica's unlocked computer while she was at her Thursday book club. But the real prize was the email I'd crafted using Lila's own corporate account, accessed through the password she'd written on a sticky note attached to her home computer monitor. In it, Lila confessed to her boss about stealing Monica's ideas, expressed guilt about her unethical behavior, and requested a meeting to discuss making amends. The email was scheduled to send itself in exactly 1 hour, right in the middle of Lila's important client presentation. The same presentation where she planned to unveil Monica's stolen marketing campaign as her own brilliant innovation. I walked into the office building like I belonged there, nodding to the security guard who'd seen me drop off lunch for Lila dozens of times over the years. Took the elevator to the 15th floor, where the regional offices of Hartwell and Associates occupied half the building in a maze of glass walls and open-concept workspaces. Lila was in conference room B, visible through the transparent walls, gesturing animatedly at a PowerPoint presentation, while a room full of suits nodded and took notes. She looked confident, professional, completely in control. The woman who'd spent the morning planning my destruction with her lover, now playing the role of dedicated employee and marketing genius. I walked to the reception desk and handed the flash drive to the secretary, a middle-aged woman named Patricia who'd always been kind to me during my visits. "Could you make sure Miss Hartwell gets this?" I asked, referring to Lila's boss. "It's some research Lila asked me to drop off. She said it was urgent." Oh, Patricia smiled and promised to deliver it immediately. I thanked her and left, taking the stairs instead of the elevator to avoid the security cameras. By the time I reached the parking garage, the first phase of Lila's professional destruction was already in motion. My phone buzzed with a text from Cap. "Package delivered. E's car situation is aromatic. Where do you want to meet for phase 3? I typed back, "Jules Bar, 1 hour. Time to let the whole town know what kind of people we're dealing with." Jules Bar occupied the kind of building.
He just gave me a massage, that's it!
A massage? With I Miss Your Body After?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
That had seen better decades. Weathered brick, neon signs that flickered more than they shone, and windows so stained with salt air and cigarette smoke that they filtered the afternoon sun into something resembling twilight. It was the kind of place where dock workers and fishermen came to forget their troubles, where gossip flowed as freely as the beer, and where everyone knew everyone else's business before they knew it themselves. Jules himself was a mountain of a man, with arms like tree trunks and a beard that had gone gray sometime during the Clinton administration. He'd been running this establishment since before I moved to town, and he had the kind of encyclopedic knowledge of local affairs that would make a newspaper editor weep with envy. "Garrett," he called out as I walked through the door. "Heard you had some excitement at your place last night. Monica's been in here since noon, telling anyone who'll listen about some kind of showdown with your wife." I ordered a whiskey and settled onto my usual stool, the worn leather conforming to my body like an old friend's embrace. "Monica talks too much." "That she does," Jules agreed, polishing a glass with practiced efficiency. "But sometimes talking too much is exactly what a situation needs." The bar was filling up with the usual afternoon crowd. Guys from the docks, a few office workers playing hooky, some retirees who treated the place like their personal social club. Perfect audience for what I had planned. Cap arrived 15 minutes later, looking like he'd been wrestling with something large and potentially dangerous. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair was mussed, and he had the satisfied expression of a man who'd just completed an unpleasant but necessary task. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Like clockwork," he replied, ordering a beer. Evan discovered his car situation around noon, spent 20 minutes trying to figure out what was wrong, then called a tow truck. Driver took one whiff and refused to get in the cab with him. "And Leela?" "Oh, that's the beautiful part." Cap's grin could have powered the bar's neon signs. "Got a friend who works security at Hartwell and Associates. Says there was quite a scene around 1 o'clock. Seems Leela's boss received some interesting information right in the middle of a client presentation." I felt a warm glow of satisfaction spread through my chest. Details. Monica apparently went ballistic when she found out about the stolen marketing campaign. Started screaming at Leela right in front of the clients, accusing her of theft, plagiarism, professional sabotage. Security had to escort Monica out of the building, but not before she'd made sure everyone in the office knew exactly what kind of person Leela really is. Jules had been listening with the focused attention of a man who trafficked in information. That explains why Monica was in here earlier, ranting about betrayal and backstabbing. She was buying drinks for half the bar, telling them all about how her best friend had been stealing her work for months. "Where is she now?" I asked. "Home, probably," Jules replied, "but she'll be back. Women like Monica don't let go of a grievance easily. She'll be milking this story for weeks." The afternoon crowd was growing larger, and I could see the perfect opportunity taking shape. These people, my neighbors, my coworkers, the folks who'd known me and Leela for years, they were hungry for drama, starved for entertainment in their routine lives. All I had to do was give them what they wanted. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photo gallery I'd prepared. Screenshots of the text messages, pictures of Evan leaving my building, timestamps that told the whole sordid story. Not the explicit stuff. I wasn't looking to traumatize anyone, but enough evidence to make the situation crystal clear. "Hey, Jules," I called out, raising my voice so the whole bar could hear. "You still got that big screen TV working?" "Sure do. Why?" Thought folks might enjoy a little slideshow, kind of a public service announcement about the importance of marital fidelity. The conversations around the bar gradually died down as people realized something interesting was about to happen. Word spread quickly in places like this. Within minutes, every eye in the room was focused on me and the phone in my hand. "Now, Garrett," Jules said carefully, "you sure you want to do this? Once something goes public, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure," I replied. "These people deserve to know what kind of neighbors they have, what kind of coworkers they're dealing with." I connected my phone to the bar's wireless system and started the presentation. The first image appeared on the screen, a text message from Lila to Evan, dated 3 weeks ago. "Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You make me feel alive again." A collective gasp went up from the crowd. Someone in the back whistled low and long. The second image showed Evan's response. "Same here. Your husband has no idea how lucky he is. Too bad he's too stupid to appreciate what he has." "Well, I'll be damned," muttered old Pete, a retired fisherman who'd been coming to Jules' bar since the Eisenhower administration. "That's your wife, Garrett? And that pretty boy from the marina?" "That's them," I confirmed, advancing to the next slide. "Been carrying on behind my back for months, planning to ruin my reputation, get me fired, take everything I've worked for." The mood in the room shifted from curiosity to outrage. These were working people, folks who understood loyalty and betrayal in visceral terms. Adultery was bad enough, but the calculated cruelty of Lila and Evan's plan struck them as something much worse. Asked Sarah, one of the few women in the bar. She worked at the harbor master's office and had always been friendly to both me and Lila. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with," I replied, "starting with tonight." "Tonight?" Cap asked, though I could tell from his expression that he already knew what I had in mind. "The town carnival," I said, finishing my whiskey and standing up. "Biggest social event of the summer. Half the town will be there, including Lila and Evan. Perfect opportunity for a little public education." The crowd in the bar was buzzing with anticipation now. Nothing brought a community together like a good scandal, and I was offering them front row seats to what promised to be the social event of the decade. "You need backup?" asked Tommy, a dock worker who'd been laid off the previous month and was nursing his resentment along with his beer. "Because I'd be happy to help you teach those two a lesson about respect." "Thanks, but this is something I need to handle myself," I replied. "Though if you folks want to spread the word about what kind of people we're dealing with, I wouldn't object to that." Huh. I left the bar to a chorus of supportive voices and promises to see me at the carnival. Behind me, Jules was already fielding requests to replay the slideshow, and I could hear phones buzzing as people started texting and calling their friends and family members. By sunset, half the town would know about Lila's affair. By midnight, the other half would know too. And tomorrow morning, when the dust settled and the carnival lights were dark, everyone would know exactly what happened when you tried to destroy Garrett Harlan. Phase 3 was about to begin. The annual Harbor Days Carnival transformed the waterfront into a kaleidoscope of lights, sounds, and smells that could be overwhelming even under the best circumstances. Tonight, with my marriage imploding and my reputation on the line, the sensory assault felt like walking through a fever dream. Neon signs advertised everything from fried dough to ring toss games. The Ferris wheel turned lazy circles against the star-filled sky, while the carousel played the same tinkling melody it had been playing since I was a kid. Families wandered between the attractions. Teenagers clustered around the more adventurous rides, and couples shared cotton candy and stolen kisses in the shadows between the game booths. I found Lila near the dunking booth, surrounded by her usual circle of admirers and hangers-on. She was wearing a white sundress that made her look innocent and pure. Quite a performance, considering what I knew about her afternoon activities. Evan stood beside her like a faithful lapdog, his golden hair catching the carnival lights and his smile never wavering, despite the fact that he still smelled faintly of rotting fish. They hadn't seen me yet, which gave me a moment to appreciate the irony of the situation. Here they were, playing the role of the perfect couple at a community celebration, while half the people around them already knew the truth about their relationship. The whispers had been following me since I arrived, along with sympathetic looks and offers of support that warmed my heart more than I'd expected. "There's the man of the hour," Cap said, appearing at my elbow with 2 cups of beer and a grin that could have lit up the midway. "You ready for this?" "Born ready," I replied, taking the beer and surveying the crowd. "How many people know?" "Most of them, I'd say." "Jules' bar was packed after you left," and Monica showed up around 5 to add her own commentary to the story. She's been working the crowd like a politician, making sure everyone knows exactly how she was betrayed by her best friend. Where is she now? Over by the ring toss, holding court with about 6 other women. They're all taking turns expressing their outrage about Lila's behavior. It's quite a sight. I spotted Monica's group and had to admire her performance. She'd positioned herself perfectly to intercept anyone heading toward Lila's location, ensuring that the story reached maximum saturation before the main event began. Her face was flushed with righteous indignation, and her gestures were becoming more animated with each retelling of her workplace humiliation. "Showtime," I murmured, finishing my beer and starting toward Lila's group. The crowd parted as I approached, conversations dying down as people realized they were about to witness something memorable. Lila looked up and saw me coming, her face cycling through surprise, fear, and finally settling on defiant anger. "Garrett," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, stopping just close enough to make everyone uncomfortable. "Community events are so important, don't you think? Bringing people together, sharing information, making sure everyone knows their neighbors." Evan stepped forward, trying to insert himself between me and Lila. "Look, Garrett, about last night, what about it?" I asked, genuinely curious to hear his explanation. "You mean the part where you've been screwing my wife in our bed? Or the part where you've been plotting to destroy my career?" A collective intake of breath from the surrounding crowd. Someone's phone camera flashed, and I realized this conversation was about to become permanently documented. "You're being dramatic," Lila said, but her voice lacked conviction. "We were just what?" I interrupted. "Just planning my professional humiliation? Just laughing about what a loser I am? Just figuring out how to steal everything I've worked for?" The crowd was growing larger, drawn by the promise of conflict and revelation. I could see faces I recognized: neighbors, coworkers, people who'd attended our wedding, people who'd considered us friends. Their expressions ranged from shock to disgust to fascination, but none of them looked surprised. The story had preceded me, just as I'd hoped. "You have no right to air our private business in public," Lila hissed, her composure finally cracking. "This is between us." "Private?" I laughed, the sound carrying across the carnival grounds. "You made it public when you decided to conduct your affair in our apartment building, where the neighbors could see. You made it public when you involved Monica in your schemes. You made it public when you started spreading lies about me at work." Evan tried again to defuse the situation. "Maybe we should take this somewhere more private?" "Why?" I asked. "Afraid people might learn what kind of man you really are? Afraid they might find out you get your kicks destroying other people's marriages?" "That's not," he started, but I wasn't finished. "Tell them about the voice recording, Evan. Tell them about how you and my wife planned to frame me for harassment. Tell them about how you laughed while discussing my destruction." His face went pale in the carnival lights. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and connected it to a portable speaker I'd brought for exactly this purpose. "Let me refresh your memory." The recording started playing, and Lila's voice cut through the carnival noise like a knife. "He's such a loser, stuck in that pathetic job, living in the past, thinking he's still some hotshot reporter. I can't wait to be rid of him." The crowd pressed closer, straining to hear every word. When Evan's voice joined in, "Soon, baby. Once we get him fired for harassment, you can file for divorce and take everything." Someone in the back of the crowd booed. Leela lunged for my phone, desperation overriding her social conditioning. "Turn that off." Leela lunged for my phone, desperation overriding her social conditioning. Even the carnival music seemed muted, as if the entire midway was holding its breath. "You recorded us without permission," Evan said weakly. "That's illegal." "Actually, it's not," Cap's voice carried from somewhere in the crowd. "Single-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, it's perfectly legal. Besides," I added, "Leela recorded it herself. I just found it on her phone." That revelation sent another wave of shock through the assembled crowd. Leela had been so careless, so confident in her superiority, that she'd documented her own betrayal. "You went through my phone?" she demanded. "Your phone that you left unlocked on our kitchen counter with all your passwords written on sticky notes?" "Yeah, I looked through it." Amazing what people will put in writing when they think they're untouchable. Monica chose that moment to make her entrance, pushing through the crowd with her phone held high, recording everything. Tell them about the stolen marketing campaign, Lila. Tell them how you've been taking credit for my work. The crowd turned to watch this new development, and I realized the situation was spiraling beyond my control, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. You betrayed me, Monica continued, her voice rising to a shriek. You stole my ideas. You ruined my presentation. You destroyed my career. Monica, please. Layla tried to interrupt. And for what? For him? Monica pointed at Evan with disgust. For this pathetic excuse for a man who smells like fish guts and can't even start his own car? That got a laugh from the crowd, and I saw Evan's face flush with humiliation. His perfect image was crumbling in real time, and everyone was watching it happen. This is insane, he muttered, starting to back away from the circle of onlookers. Where are you going, Evan? I called out. Don't you want to explain to everyone how you seduced my wife? Don't you want to share your philosophy about taking what you want regardless of who gets hurt? He turned and tried to push through the crowd, but they weren't inclined to let him escape. Hands reached out to stop him. Voices called for him to stay and face the music. And someone, I never found out who, gave him a shove that sent him stumbling toward the dunking booth. No! He yelped, realizing what was about to happen, but it was too late. His momentum carried him forward, and he toppled into the water tank with a splash that sent waves cascading over the Carnival Games platform. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Phones appeared to capture the moment, and Evan emerged from the water looking like a drowned rat with perfectly styled hair. And that, I announced to the assembled crowd, is what happens to people who think they can destroy other people's lives without consequences. The carnival incident should have been